Hola, muy buenas a todos a Hablando con gente del gremio, por Hobby Home. Bueno, pues hoy tenemos un invitado muy especial. Mi inglés no es muy bueno, pero él no se maneja muy bien en español, así que hemos decidido hacer la entrevista en inglés. Espero que podáis entenderme porque a él seguro que sí. Que la disfrutéis.
Hello, Filipe. Welcome to my personal interviews with people from the computer engineering side.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
I'm doing good. And you?
I'm good. So just present yourself for a bit and tell all of the people that are watching us who are you and what are you doing in your life.
Sure. So, if you don't know me, I'd like to mention I'm Filipe. I'm Portuguese. I was living in Spain for about 3 years. Now I relocated back to Portugal. In terms of job, I'm professionally a software tester, typically what you call a test engineer or a QA engineer or something like that. What that means in practice is, for the most part of my time, I'm either coding automated checks or scripts to help testing efforts of some piece of software. It can be a game, it can be some application or something. And for the other half of my time, I'm actively experimenting that software that is being built, and I'm actively trying to find ways in which the product might be broken and and such. Um, I was working up until recently in a video games company, working on a mobile MMO. And before that, you'd find me working like in different industries and different kinds of applications, testing different kinds of software, so to speak. And personal, and a personal perspective, I'm married. Me and my wife play a lot of video games. We watch a lot of movies. I'm big. Alberto knows this. I'm a big Jurassic Park fan and a big wrestling fan and all the like sorts. Yeah. So that's pretty much like very, very, very compressed summary of me.
That sounds good, my friend. So we can start with the first question. I think that that's the same question that I will do for all people that come here.
Sure.
Is when did you think or when did you start to study computer engineering? I mean, when you was 10 years old, for example, you think that, oh, I love the computer and want to work about it in the future or whatever.
I think computers and me, we've had a long relationship, so to speak. Of course, there's people that were born in the 60s or the 50s, and that they can say that they, picked up the beginning of computers. My first operative system was Windows 98 or something like that. Um, and I pretty much fell in love, both me and my brother and whatnot, and other friends and family members. We fell in love with a lot of video games on PC and then later on consoles and whatnot. And one of my very early young dreams, so to speak, was to work in making those games. So we started learning how to do levels and maps on for Counter Strike and other source-based engines. We messed around a bit with Unreal Engine back when they opened it with UDK and whatnot. That was one side of it. The other side was actually an uncle of mine that works in computers, so to speak, that works in software and whatnot. He had introduced me one time to programming. So he was like, "Hey, come here. I want to show you this cool stuff that you can do." It was something really simple. It was like uh, coding stuff using Visual Basic for applications in Excel. And it was really simple stuff, but it intrigued me back then that you could use, logic and whatnot to do all these uh, weird little tricks and whatnot. So it picked up from that. And then I had a handful of friends also that they were very into programming already. It was like when I was 13, 14 years old. Those kids were already a lot into programming, so I ended up joining that gang, and I started messing around with C++, started messing around with Linux and servers and all that kind of different things. I was never very was never very proficient uh, programmer per se. I can code, but I'm not one of those stories of those kids that from the age 10 they are geniuses and they can program anything that gets handed over to them. I'm not that kind of kid. I'm more of the kind that's very curious and I'm really passionate about learning ever since I was a kid. So I might not be very bright or a genius, but I love learning and I love learning about coding and all these different things.
Nice, nice, very nice, Philippe.
I'm
So,
not sure if I answered the question fully well, but that's a bit of my that's a bit
it's
of my
cool.
story, so to speak.
It's cool. Yeah, you said that you started with the video games because you could code some levels or something like that. So,
Yeah,
just a question about it. Do you still
sure.
play in a lot of video games or not for now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now, one of the things that has happened to me, and I think it's an age thing. It happens to, I think it happens to you and it happens to all of us once we get past a certain age, is that we have less free time to play, so to speak, because we get all these other different responsibilities of, having a job and having to take care of life at home. We don't have parents to take care of stuff like the dishes or clothes at home. And I'm talking from privilege. Like I know
Yeah.
I was also as a kid, I also had to do the dishes and and help out at home, but we definitely had more time when we were young. And like now it's not the case. I still play. I still play a few online games with friends like you and my brother and other a smaller circle of friends that I had when I was way younger. When we were young, it's very easy to find someone to play with at school and whatnot. Nowadays, it's hard. So I play a lot of those games, and I also like games that have interesting narratives, interesting stories and whatnot. So a couple that jump to I'm playing for the first time the game Last of Us, the first one. I had never played it so far. It's really cool. I had played like from the same publisher the Uncharted games. I love playing those kinds of games, and Red Dead Redemption 2 for me is like probably one of my favorite games. So yes, to answer your question, I do still play a lot of games, and I do. I consider myself in the gamer in the gamer crowd, so to speak. A member of that crowd.
Yeah, but you are not the typical gamer that are playing online games or only online games and just
No.
blaming a lot of people that play with him.
No, no, no.
No, just
I'm.
more
I
chill.
was more. Yeah, I was more when I was like a teenager. We definitely there was a phase where we played a lot of those, shooters like Counter Strike and Call of Duty and whatnot. And we played me and my friends. We played it a lot, and we mostly played online games. But now it's a mixture of everything, so to speak.
So, more or less, how much time did you spend every week playing games? More or
Playing
less.
games. If I'm lucky enough to put in, I don't know, 1 hour every other day, and on weekends maybe 3 hours, I would say probably 10 to 15 hours per week. That's a lot. If when you put
Yeah.
up the hours all together, but the thing is, and you probably went through this as well. That is, when you're playing and you play for 1 hour, the hour that your notion of time is like it passed really quick. So a lot of times you're playing for 1 hour, it feels like I've been only playing for like 15 minutes. It's already I don't know 11 at night or something like that.
Nice, nice, nice. So, leaving the video games from the other side,
Sure.
I will go with the first question, I think. What position are you doing currently in your company? I mean, what is your work every day? You are coding, you are testing, you are just managing a team, or what are you doing in your company?
So I'm not in the company. I'll start a new job really soon. Right now, I'm not in the company. I've left the current company that I was in to join another one. But on any given day, usually what you'll see me do is take for example a mobile game in my last company case, a mobile
Yeah.
video game that is online that you play against hundreds of players in a server. So what I did was I on one hand I coded and developed tools, software tools that folks could use to mimic certain aspects of the game, for example, from the server perspective. So let's say that you want to, I don't, the game is about, spaceships, and you want to put spaceships battling each other to test something about some other code that someone has made of battle system or something similar. So what I would do is I would work on the tool, I would create a tool in order to allow other folks to do those kinds of checks, to do those kinds of load tests where I want to create a big battle and put tons of ships fighting against each other to check if the behavior is more or less what maybe the game designer is expecting, and if the systems still work or seem to be working and whatnot. So that's one big part of it. That is coding a lot of automated checks, coding a lot of test tools, coding a lot of tooling that is used to test something or to help testing. The other chunk of my time, you'll find me, is actually experimenting with stuff and exploring, doing a lot of exploring and learning. What that might mean in practice is, let's say you give me an application and you say I have to test it by. So there's a handful of things that I will do at that point in time, which are I will try to engage with that application, with that game. I will try to learn about it. I will try to interact with it. It's really crucial to interact with it to see what's the experience. What does the experience feel like? You know, and then I do that in different with different mentalities. Depending on what I'm trying to do. If I'm actively trying to find for a specific kind of problem within the application or the game, then I'm going to do a certain set of activities where I'm going to try out a certain set of experiments. Or if I want to learn, there's something that I don't know yet about the app and I want to learn about it, then yes, I'm going to go ahead and explore it. I'm not going to follow any, script. I'm just going to go ahead and explore it and use it as a user, so to speak. That, I, that a lot of it, if you had to sum it all up, a lot of my job revolves around those two things. So, developing test tooling that enables folks like myself and other testers and folks in the team to test. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is um, testing out stuff and learning about what I'm testing and hunting down for problems, hunting down for bugs.
Nice, very nice. And you mentioned that you are not working on Portugal or Spain. That you was working on Spain, in Spain. But now, where are you working? I
I'm
mean,
working.
you are from Portugal, but where are you working?
So, to explain this fully, when I was working in Spain, I was working remotely from Spain. So the company, for instance, the company office was in Ireland, and I had colleagues in Ireland. I have colleagues in United States. I had colleagues, in different parts of the globe. And the same with my previous jobs. I had, folks in Germany, in Slovenia, and all these different places. Um, and right now I'm in Portugal, so I'm living in the south of Portugal, mainly I moved here also for other um, life, family reasons. But I'm working remotely. The company that I'm going to work with now, I'll be working remotely with colleagues also that are, sitting in the United States. They are in Canada. They are in other parts of Europe. So everything is done, from this room here
Yeah.
that I've retrofitted as an office gaming battle station, so to speak.
Nice, very nice. So it's a good way to know people around the world. I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Probably now,
I
if
mean,
you do a trip with your with your wife to Ireland, you can check with colleagues
yeah,
from the
yeah.
work or something like that.
That's definitely a good thing about, I would say, from my personal experience. both in working in a different country from the one you are originate from. In my case, I was working in Spain. I'm not Spanish. Um, Both that experience of leaving your home country and trying out somewhere else, and also the experience of working every day with people that are in a different time zone, in a different place, in a different culture, whatnot. It definitely helps me. I compare myself to myself 5 years ago, and I'm a more, I would say, a more built person than I was back then in terms of my ideas, in terms of, my appreciation for things and whatnot.
So it could be a tip that you say from some people that have now 10 years old and he knows that and they knows that they want to work in the computer engineering world and so on. It could be
Yeah.
a tip for them.
Yeah. So my advice for folks that are young, that I give the same advice that I give to my young brother and I give other kids and whatnot, is that if you really want to try, to make a name for yourself in the tech industry, and it can be programming, it can be doing other stuff. There's tons of other stuff that you can do using a computer, like it doesn't have to be coding if you don't like coding. But one of the things that I tell folks is that start right now thinking about if you really want to try uh, and put yourself in a different country, because there's a lot to benefit for yourself in terms of career just by having that experience of working in a different country, you know. And then once you're sure that, hey, I might want to try this, I might want to live in another country, that entails other stuff that you should be preparing. It's better to prepare before that. It can be something as, you know, especially in Portugal and Spain, learning English, learning um, which companies you can apply to once you finish school or college, that might be able to help you move to that country. Because it's one thing for you to move and start hunting for a job there, like my grandparents did, and a lot of folks did back in the 70s, of going to France and whatnot, not even having a job, and then hunting for a job there without college education or anything. And right now we are in a good position to do all those kinds of things with the companies even paying for your relocation and all that kind of stuff. So definitely shoot for, learning English, thinking about going to another country if that's a thing that you want to experiment with, and if not, you can also invest in a decent setup to work remotely from home. Companies usually, depending on the company that hires you, they can help you with that. Or you can take a whole different route. You can start thinking. A lot of kids nowadays are doing it better than our generation did, I think. That is, they also try to be entrepreneurs for by themselves. They start there. They're not waiting for a company to hire them in some other country or in their own country. They start their own company. They hunt down for problems to solve, and they solve those problems anywhere they are. That's an even more interesting approach that I recommend.
Cool. So let's go with the next question. I think that it will be good to listen your answer about it. Did you think that the way when you started to study, when you started preparation for the future, did you think that you could be in the situation that you are, or do you think that it worse, that better?
A lot of it was. Here's the thing. When I was studying, there's one thing I didn't tell about my story. When I was studying, I wasn't studying computer engineering or any of the sort. I wanted to go to computer engineering or to computer science, but due to some life circumstances, I never got into that degree, for example, in college, right? And the thing that I studied has nothing to do with what I ended up falling in love in terms of profession, even within the tech industry, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing nowadays. Not a lot that I learned in college. reuse that knowledge nowadays. Not a lot of it I reuse it. Maybe some more than more than anything else, some life lessons, some teachers that I remember, really pushed me and really gave me incentive um, to look better at things, to look for interesting problems to solve, to look for, to not stop here, to take the next leap forward and whatnot. Those are the better experience that have oftentimes nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. A lot of it is, on one hand, preparation, because I was never sitting around. I was always trying to search. At one point, I was always trying to search, for a good opportunity, even if it's just something that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. But if I have nothing to lose, I tried it. And a lot of it is preparation, but a lot of it is also luck. I'm afraid, because it's one thing to be talking to you, as what people say, a position of privilege. I had a more or less healthy family, home, and I had, more or less, uh, even though my family, for example, had hardships in terms of finances and whatnot. I had a decent, I had decent pillars holding me, holding me steady, so I could give the next jump forward. Not a lot of folks have that, so, and luck also plays a part in that, but definitely both preparation and luck, so to speak.
Nice. And how do you see the future in your career?
Uh, it's hard to answer that question for me. The thing is, I know more or less, I have an idea right now of the kind of things that I would like to be doing 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatnot. But what I've learned through time, and this was a very cheesy question, that we would ask, or we would get asked when we were interviewing for a company. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, or something like
Yeah,
that?
that's true. But it's not.
Th-
I think that it's not the same that this question. I mean, well, how do you see the future? I mean, it will be hard to improve in my company. I for sure will be working on from another guys, or I will do my own company, or I don't know. I think that it's not the same way than when you are searching for a
Yeah,
job and
I know. I think I know what you mean. Let me see if I can answer that. Uh, Take into account what you mentioned. And take into account my own context, my own environment. Okay, this does not mean it's the same for someone living in France or United Kingdom or Spain or United States. But take into account my context in Portugal right now, I would never get the opportunities that I have right now if I hadn't tried to work outside of Portugal, or I would never get the opportunities I have right now if I didn't. If my first objective was, I'm not going to search first for opportunities in Portugal. I'm going to search first for opportunities somewhere else. That's one thing that I think is going to change a lot in the next years. That is, more and more companies will understand that, you know, uh, they can hire good people, they can hire a lot of talent anywhere. And no longer it will be the case, that it's people want to go live in San Francisco, or they want to go live in, I don't know, Madrid, or capital and whatnot, because all the tech companies are there, the offices are there, and whatnot. What I think will change is smart companies, companies that realize this, that is, there's talent everywhere, and it doesn't. We don't need to fly those people here. They can work from their homes. This will be one of the main things that I think will change for me, is that I don't see myself working in an office anytime soon. The other thing that I think will change is, it has more to do with software testing, and I think you probably guess where I'm going with this. That is, more and more we see these. Up until now, it was always a fight between different schools of testing, but more and more we see these two branches of. There's the folks that understand testing and test engineering as a work of craft, a work of adapting to context, a work of uh, doing testing and testing engineering, not just because you're obeying to some religious rules, but doing things with context in mind. And there's also these other folks that are saying more and more that we can automate everything. That's not necessarily the case, and you know this. Or we can use AI to do things. So one of the things that I think will also happen is exactly that divide, that split, will probably be bigger, but there will be a good opportunity, a good market for for both of them eventually, yes, but especially for the folks that are more context driven and are more passionate about testing and test engineering. Why I say this is because companies are also realizing, a few smart companies are realizing that um, they get more value, at least in my career, they get more value from someone that understands testing and does testing well than just someone that is following, some guidelines from some United Nations of testers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Those are the two things that I think will change quite a lot. So if we had to sum it all up, the working remotely will be a bigger factor. It will be a whole different reality in 10 years from now for people getting out of college, like in well, similar to what we are right now. We're still pretty much young, It will be a different world for them and for us, and it will also be a different world for testers and for the testing or software testing market, so to speak.
And I don't know how can question this. Um, as Q&A, because you are a Q&A, a software tester, it's the same. We know that Q&A is not famous, and some people inside the computer engineering sector don't know what this guy is doing. So I wanna ask you, if, as Q&A, what do you prefer to work? A little company or a big company?
There's a few things there that I wouldn't say I am. I wouldn't say I'm a QA or quality assurance person, so to speak. Now, some people might say, yeah, sure you are, because I don't just do testing, I do a bit more than testing, and then I could fit that into quality assurance. But to get to your point, to get to your question, um, I need to think for a bit on that one. Maybe can you repeat the question in a different way? Can you give me an example?
Yes, so for example, from my side, as Q&A, so software tester, really I don't care about the biggest or smallest that the company is that I'm working. The important thing for me is that company wants to do a good testing, and he doesn't care about ESTB certificates or whatever they want. Just find a good tester that he knows to do good him jobs, and that's things. I don't care about for the moment and just now. I don't care about for the companies that did. No, you need the ISTQB certification, and you need to do the Scrum method, and you need to open the book with these fields and so on. No, just resolve the bug, find bugs, and do a better product. And it
I
doesn't matter if it's a big or a small company. Probably
so
a big one has these requirements.
I I don't have I'm at a point where right now I don't have a personal preference. The thing is, I wouldn't say this just as a QA person or a tester, so to speak. What I really don't like, independent of the size of the company, I don't like if the company is very dysfunctional. Because all companies, uh, all companies are a bit dysfunctional, but some of them are more dysfunctional than others. All these symptoms that you mentioned, like the They mandate some certifications, for example, for testing, or they do testing in a very factory-like manner, and they don't do testing more adapt to the needs of the project, so to speak. And those are two examples, but there's more, more examples, not necessarily, related to software testing or to quality assurance. Uh, there are other symptoms of dysfunction in companies. And what I try to do nowadays is, regardless of the company size, if I'm trying to look for a new job, what I try to do is I try to at least filter for some signals to get an idea if the company is, you know, someplace where it's a very toxic workplace, or if it's more or less healthy workplace, and I can be there, I can grow as a person, I can do my job, and I can have other other things going on in my life besides work. Because a lot of companies nowadays, also, you have that problem that they are so dysfunctional, they are so toxic, that work just becomes this thing that fills your head and fills your time, and you can't do other things, and you can't pursue other dreams. So that's what I look for. I don't necessarily, now, of course, very large companies, and we've been through this in our experiences, and we know a lot of friends that have been to this experience as well. Large companies do have a problem with
with people.
With people, because more people, more problems. That's a fact. Uh, but there's a lot of clashes that come from, when you get to a point where you have tons and tons of people, you're going to have a lot of politics and a lot of cultural clashes, and whatnot. A lot of clashes of ideas, a lot of clashes of power, so to speak. So this is why, personally, I prefer to avoid large companies or large organizations, precisely because of these. Because for me personally, these all the clashes, the political power clashes that come and are very prevalent in a very political giant corporation. These, I know that I personally, I can't get along with these, so I try to avoid that kind of stuff.
Cool. I have another question for you. Uh, what are the tips that you say for the people that is starting doing some programs or studying computer engineering, or these persons that want to be part of our jobs or for the companies, the future companies, or what are the tips, the most important tips?
There's a couple of them, and they are very personal. They might not work for everybody in all contexts. Uh, Two of them are, try to learn a lot of different things so you have a feel for what is out there, because you might not be working in that thing that you first thought you would be working. You might not be working in that anytime soon. So try to get a hold of what is out there, so expand your knowledge even outside of computing, outside of tech and programming and whatnot. But also, if you do find things that um, they trigger something in you, you know I'm not going to say passionate. In our industry, we say passionate, find your passion and whatnot all the time. I'm not going to say that, but definitely search for interesting problems to solve in where you are, or even in different areas here where you are. Because a lot of times, when trying to solve an interesting problem, uh, you'll get tons of bad ideas, and you'll get a few good ideas, but it's in that ideation uh, process, and trying to solve problems, that you already get better than a lot of folks when going into the job world, so to speak. And another piece of advice that I could give to folks is, be very greedy with your time. Why I say this is because When you're young and you're fresh out of college or fresh out of school and you join a company, companies will try, to take a lot of your time, to steal your time. And your time, you'll realize this after time, that your time is your biggest currency. So I'm not saying, be overly greedy. You can still try to be humble, um, but be very aware and mindful that your time is limited. So that goes for everything. From, you know, a lot of times you might think I'm gonna start in this company and I'm gonna work really hard so I will get promoted and whatnot. And soon you'll realize, and you'll get into a shock because you'll realize that companies don't work necessarily, on a fair basis. Like it's not like in school where you would do a test, and if the test was 100% out of 100%, the teacher had to give you 100% out of 100% because it was fair or something like that. In the job world, things don't work like that. So be very greedy with your time, how much time sometimes you might spend in a company, or how much time, you might dedicate yourself to something, when a lot of times you could be pursuing your own dreams and other stuff outside of work.
Hmm? Nice. That I think that is a good tip for the young people. I think, but I don't know. And the most important question for me, I think, what do you do if I now send to you an unlimited credit card? Now, and please think think about the question
The thing
and
is,
answer honestly. If you will live the life on Hawaii, just say it. No worries.
there's a couple of things there that nothing comes for free. So you did mention I would give you an unlimited credit card, but a
Yeah.
credit card you always have to pay back what
No,
you
no, no,
spend.
no, no. No, no. You don't need
So
to pay
you're
much. You have
you're
all
saying
money that
it's
you want for you.
all right, all right. So here's the thing. Even what I've come to realize after some time is that you get to a point where money stops being it stops being the main thing that contributes to your daily happiness or to your dreams, to your achievements and whatnot. And again, I'm speaking from a position of privilege, so to speak, but this is a reality that is, after a certain point, no matter how much money you have to spend on things and whatnot, it definitely helps, but it's not everything. So probably what I would do in a case like that, I would probably continue working, but I would definitely, work on my own projects, um, invest a lot in learning a lot of more things. There are so many. This is gonna sound dumb, but and I got this idea from another person, and that person mentioned something like, "What would you do instead of doing an MBA or taking a college degree? Why don't you pay the professor or the teachers to just teach you the stuff and to have private classes with you?" Probably I would do something like this. Instead of going to some expensive college somewhere, I would just call the professor. I'm going to pay you whatever you want. I want you to teach me in private. I want you to teach me all these different things that I want to learn about. So I would probably do that. And then, of course, the normal stuff of having a lot of different experiences of traveling and, well, me and my wife seeing different places in the world and working from all these different places and whatnot. Yeah.
That sounds as a plan, my friend. Sounds as a plan.
I would definitely also play a lot more games and read more books and watch more movies.
But not online game, please.
Yes.
Still with the company games. As you know, the Q&A part of the computer engineering, there is not, as we said, there is not famous. There are a lot of people that don't know what we do or what is this part of the projects or whatever you want. Also inside of these companies, and I can imagine that the normal people, I mean the street people that is working on the hospital or on the supermarket. You can go for them and say, hey, I'm Q&A, I'm software tester. Let me an orange for for dinner, please. What can you say for these people that don't know what is this?
Well, it, I understand the point. I understand the problem. Usually, when in those cases of people that are not very technical, so to speak, or they're not working, with computers and stuff like that. Usually, what I try to tell to those people is my main mission is to hunt down for problems, for ways in which something that you use, it might be something that you use every day on the computer or on your phone, hunt down for ways that it doesn't work. And you would be surprised that yes, things don't work. And a lot of times you might remember from your daily experience. Sometimes you open your email, it doesn't work properly. You open a video on YouTube and it doesn't work properly, or you call someone and the signal you can't hear that person, or you know
Yeah.
every day we're used to seeing all these kinds of problems, and that's exactly the kind of problems that we as testers are hunting down every day and pointing those out to people, so that they get fixed and so that they get resolved, so to speak.
So that very nice way to explain them what we do.
But it's definitely, I would say, testing in general, quality assurance and whatnot. We're in a very weird position and have been for a while, which is, if you ask someone in the 80s that worked in tech in the 80s or in the 90s, so really old school people, everybody knew and understood the role of a tester, of a software tester that worked in tech. Nowadays, it's a bit, because of all these new schools of thought that, quality, and quality assurance, our job is to assure quality, whatever that means and whatnot. It added a lot of confusion. There has been a lot of confusion in the last 20 years, 10 years, and whatnot, with some voices, with some people trying to clear that confusion, so to speak. But there's definitely been a lot of confusion. So we need to start, I would say we need to start from within, from, our small communities, our friends that also are testers, our colleagues that are not testers and whatnot, really, pushing this point back home that a tester's job is to hunt down for problems, is to hunt down for bugs, to hunt down for all these things. It's not all of that mess, all of that confusion. Although that confusion might sound nice, from experience, and I know from experience that a lot of times it's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything to say quality is assured or something like that. That's that's
Nice.
that's my take on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, nice, nice, nice. And just the last one question that I have. If somebody comes to you and because as you say, we are hunting problems on the email, on the phone calls or whatever you can use, because you can also software test a screen, a TV, a computer. You can do whatever you want as a software tester. But what do you say a person that is coming to you and he's saying something like, but they don't need you. They have the person that are doing these stuffs, that are doing the program, that are doing the email application. They can test it. They can do the work. They don't
That
need you.
that's okay. I'm okay with them not needing me, because to me that's a symptom of probably not a very mature organization. And I say this very seriously. You know, you might think, I don't know. Folks usually say these big words without understanding the reality. That they say stuff like, they don't have manual testers at Google. They don't have testers in this big company or in this other big company and whatnot. What folks, or a programmer can do what you do, or someone can do what you do. There's no need for your role in this organization and this problem. Beforehand, I would get triggered. I would get baited into those into those speeches. But the reality is that those are symptoms of again, dysfunctional organizations and immature organizations, immature projects, because they don't understand the value that testing brings to projects. And you see this in your day to day. Like you see the fact that, for instance, Google, if you compare Google software made back in 2005 versus now, you find a lot more embarrassing bugs using everyday stuff made by Google, Google Docs, Google Drive, Gmail, and whatnot. There's bugs in there, very apparent, than probably you would find a few years ago, because there have been people inside those organizations that they say precisely those things. We don't need testers. We don't have a need for those kinds of roles. And then they get surprised because when you don't have anyone who is whose single mission, most important mission, is to hunt down for problems, is to hunt down for bugs, is to interact with software. And this is really key, interact with software. Because a program that you might code to simulate the user experience, it's not interacting with the final product that you are building. And this is the key, that folks need to realize this, that we need to get back to the roots of interacting with learning, experimenting, and trying out the product. And that's what I have to say in those cases. if you don't need people like me, that's okay. I don't need organizations like you or projects like you.
Yeah, very
It's
nice.
time.
Yeah.
I think it's time to start replying back, choosing violence, as the memes say.
Nice. So I think that we can finish the interview, my friend. It was a really pleasure for me to have you here.
The pleasure is all mine, man. Thank you so much.
Was
Thank
mine,
you.
my friend. Was mine. It's a really good point of view that you have on the real life and on the work, on all of the side that we can talk about here. So it was a really pleasure for me. And I hope you are still well, my friend, and I hope you was comfortable here with me.
Yeah.
And I hope that you understand me well.
Yeah, of course.
That's
Don't worry.
yeah, no, yes,
I
yes.
understand you perfectly.
Just
Go ahead.
what do you say for a people that is talking to you and he says, Philippe, that you said that we should to go to other countries to work from other sides to check what is the life in these countries and so on, but I'm so scared because I don't know how to speak another language.
Here's the thing. The fear that you might have of going to another company, it is justified a lot of times, because it's a very stressful experience. Changing houses from this street to the next street in the same city is already a stressful experience. Even more when you change countries and whatnot. And it can seem scary or daunting, this thing of maybe I don't speak the language very well, or maybe I don't know a lot of the culture and whatnot. My reply back to that in that case is, you'll only know after you try it. There are things that you can only learn by trying, not by seeing someone else try, not by giving up, not by not trying. This is my perspective. Of course, things might go wrong. A lot of things might fail and whatnot. So you shouldn't, just go board a plane and go to I don't know, to some other country and not be prepared. You need to prepare. You need to investigate. If it means learning more English, or if it means taking some time to study something before you go, you should prepare. That's my main advice. Prepare, but the fear after you do it, it becomes the mountain that seems very big. It doesn't seem as big after you climb it the first time. It's just the hard part is climbing.
Do you like the interview? You were comfortable or
Yeah,
yeah?
it was really cool. Yeah, I was. I didn't know what to expect when we started. It was really cool because it felt easy to answer a lot of these things. Because at the end of the day, it's more of life questions than sometimes technical questions or something like that. So those tend to be easier to reply, so to speak.
Nice. And do you know some people that you want to stay here in the interviews, or do you think that they want to stay here?
Um, there's definitely a lot of people more interesting than me, I think, that you could interview. I can try and send you a list. I can't give you like a lot of names right on the spot, but I can send you a list afterwards on Discord or email.
We comes to play, Philippe. You should to say one name.
Let me think.
Just one. You can send me after.
What? I mean, you could. This is gonna sound cheesy. There's at least two people that come to my mind right away. One of them, you remember Nacho. That Nacho had a very interesting, I think, observing from the outside. He had a very interesting path with a lot of learnings in his life. So that might be someone really close to us that it would be interesting to get a bit of his life story, a bit of his day to day. And also Jorge, my friend
Yeah.
Jorge. Yeah, those are those are our first two people that come to my mind. There's tons of people that you can do this stuff with.
So good. Very nice. I will try to bring Nacho or Jorge or both. I will try, and you can see what is the him point of view from the life or the work or the companies or I don't know.
All right, cool. Thank you, Albert. This was really cool.
Bueno, espero que lo entendáis. Como os dije, mi inglés no es muy bueno. Además estaba muy nervioso, había momentos que no tenía ni idea de lo que estaba diciendo y la verdad es que ha sido un placer escucharle y creo que merece la pena escuchar lo que nos ha dicho y la verdad es que un 10 para él. Muchas gracias por acudir.